Section 2, Pronto. Okay, so we're at our browser, and we will go ahead and log into Birst. And from here, we're going to create a brand new project. We'll give it a name. And it's going to create the space. It's not going to create the space on our desktop or on one of our servers. It's actually going to go ahead and create it in the cloud. And you'll notice that it immediately brought us into Pronto. And over here from our main menu, you can see that we've got the 3 sections that we talked about earlier: Pronto, Visualizer, and Dashboards. And of course, we need to start by bringing data into the system, which is what Pronto is for. So we're going to create a new connection. Once again, we have the ability to connect to a variety of different sources. SQL database, if you've got flat files that you want to add, or even data that's stored in the cloud like Salesforce. All right. And with this, of course, you will need the technical information on your database. We have to select agents that we can use to actually get the data. And once again, something to keep in mind as we're doing this is Birst does not pull data from your database. You will push information from your SQL database to the cloud. And this just is useful from the standpoint that you don't need to worry about drilling holes through your firewall, etc. You have full control over creating the data. All right, and we can go ahead and save that. And once we do this, it's going to go ahead and give us access to the data on the system. Now you've got a couple different choices with this. You can actually pull data from individual tables. You can even create queries and stuff where you can do anything from pulling data from views or joining and creating SQL queries, etc. on your database so that you don't have to bring over entire tables. You also have the ability with this to filter on some of the information and stuff that you're pulling in. Okay, so we're going to keep this one fairly simple. We're just going to pull in a couple of tables. And from here, we're going to go ahead and say done. Now, the other thing that would have been interesting in that is at the time that I'm importing data, I could have also skinnied down my data set. And if any of you have worked with large data sets and stuff, oftentimes on enterprise systems, why you can have hundreds of properties within tables. And you can go ahead and use this just to select the information that you want. All right, and from here, with this, we're going to go ahead and do a couple things now that we've got our data available. So from here, we can see the information that we've got from our support cases and from our case categories. The case categories look pretty good. That's pretty straightforward, the information, the columns, etc. But with support cases, there's a couple things that I would like to do to clean this up a little bit and to add some additional information. So we'll take a look at that. And that is going to be the section on prepare. This is where we have the ability, so far we connected to our database, shows the files we wanted to use. Now we're going to take a look at how we can clean this data up and make it more usable for our end users. One of the things we'll notice as we look at this is I have case information, I have case IDs, but I really don't know anything about the account here. And that's because it's not stored in these tables. That information is actually stored in our CRM application, our Salesforce application in the cloud. So we need to go get some of that information also. So in order to do that, we're going to go back. And one of the powers of Birst is its ability to network data from multiple sources. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect to our Salesforce application. And once again, we're going to give it a connection name. And when we look at the data here, number one, we have many tables, and even within the tables, we have many columns. And I don't want to have to bring all of this in and make my users weed through all of this. So we'll select the tables that we want, and in this case, we want the account information. And then we're going to go through and uncheck the data that we don't need. So there's a bunch of this that is not important to us. And once again, sometimes it's easier if we start with everything unchecked and check the ones that we're interested in. So we'll pull over the account ID, our account name, the site, and let's also take a look at our type, and we'll pull in billing, our billing state. So once again, that looks good. All right, so now we're going to look at how we can do several things to make this data a lot cleaner. All right. And in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and make copies of a couple of these. Now the accounts view, when we look at it, looked good. But I want to create a cleaner look of both our support cases and a consolidated view of that with our case categories. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and create a view that consolidates these. So a couple things we're going to do is I'm going to hide the raw data, and then we're going to go ahead and take a look at this information. And there's a couple things I want to do with this, with my support cases. I want to go ahead and bring in my case categories into this data. And I also want to be able to extract the hour of the day from my case date. Oftentimes this is very useful to call centers to be able to tell which hours are busiest. And instead of making our end users create complicated scripts in order to do that on their end, we're going to help them out by creating that data right within Prepare. So we're going to go ahead and create a new source that we will merge these two sources into, and we're going to simply call this cases. From here, we're going to transform this data. And we're going to add a step. And when I add a step, it opens up my transforms. And this gives us a wide variety of things that we can do, from creating new columns to appending tables, calculations, all sorts of things that we can now do to go ahead and make our data more usable for our users. So we're going to take this case date, and we're going to come over here, and we're going to apply the date transform to it. Okay, and we're going to extract, and we're going to extract that the hour. This could also be useful if you were extracting months or years for accounting data. So lots of different ways you could use this. Go ahead and apply. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a brand new column that is going to give us the hour that is associated with the time of the support case. We're going to further refine this by taking our column here and simply giving it a new name. You can do a lot with these. You can go back and edit, and it gives you a nice graphical view of all of the different activities that you've done to prepare a data file. With this, in addition to this, you've got a couple different options. Is I can go back in and add it. I can also come in here and add descriptions of exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So it's also great for documentation purposes. Okay, and then another thing that we would like to do with this is we want to go ahead and merge in our case categories. So once again, we're going to add a step. And from here, we're going to go ahead and append a table. All right, and so it says, okay, we're going to append two cases. What do we want to add? I do my drop down, and I want to bring in my case categories. All right, so how do I want to link them together? And so on here, I've got a case category, and how do I want to relate that? Pretty straightforward, case category and case category. We could do multiple fields and stuff if we needed to, etc. But this brings it very straightforward. It shows the data that we're getting from the original table and what we're bringing on over. All right. So now we're going to take a look at how to bring data in from another source. So I want to be able to add the case categories directly to my cases. This is very similar to doing a VLOOKUP in Excel. In order to do that, we're going to go ahead and merge these two tables together. And once again, everything in this process is very menu driven. It walks users through what they need to do in order to create their data. So we start with cases. This is where and what do we want to combine with that? We want to bring in our support categories, sorry. All right, and how do we want to link them together? Okay, we want case category to equal our case category. And what that does is it shows us the information that we're going to bring over. Now, I don't need to bring over the case category twice, so I can go ahead and uncheck that. All right, and so now it's going to bring over my original fields plus just my remaining category expert from the case categories file. We'll go ahead and apply that. And it will go ahead and bring all of that information in for us. One last piece that we want to add to this is I want to be able to easily do calculations on the number of cases that have been closed. And to that, we're going to add a field here that we can easily summarize our closed cases. In order to do that, we're going to create a new field. So we're going to add an additional step, and we're going to come down and add a column. And so what we're going to do in order to add this to our system is we're going to add the name of the field, and then we're going to come down and tell it what kind of field I want to add. So we're going to add a decimal field, and now I need to give it the formula for what I want that field to exist. All right, and so this is used using what's called the VQual editor. So it's very similar to writing a SQL statement and even very similar to an Excel function. So we'll just do a quick if statement. And from this, we're going to do a sum or a count on whether or not the case status is closed. If it is closed, we're going to put a 1 in there. If not, we're not going to include it. This will make it easy for our end users to go ahead and create their summaries. Start over on the formula. So after giving it a name, we're going to come up here and enter our formula. And as you start to type, it's going to help you with what you need. So if, and once again, down here, it will tell you what you need, condition, if it's true, and if it's false. And so basically what we're going to look at is the case status, and if it's closed, we're going to give it a value of 1. If it's still open, we're going to give it a value of 0. Once again, we get our green check mark. It knows that it likes our formula, and we'll say OK. So at this point, I've done my transformations and turned my cases into the data set that I would like my users to be able to use. And so we're going to go ahead and publish this. And this is what makes it available to end users. Now you're going to notice something that I didn't do. I merged support cases with my case categories. I didn't merge accounts with my cases. With case categories, it's pretty much a lookup function. For every one of my support cases, I wanted to go out and look up information that was in categories. That's different than my accounts. There's not necessarily a one-to-one relationship between my support cases and my accounts. So instead of merging the two sources together, we're going to use a very powerful feature within Birst, and we are simply going to relate the data together. And this will allow Birst, as we're creating our visualizations and our dashboards, it'll give it the ability to pull this data together in whatever manner it needs to. So the final step we're going to go through is relate. And it shows that we currently have two disconnected data sources. So I'm simply going to choose both of them, and I'm going to say, how do I want to relate these together? Once again, very straightforward. I want to link them by account ID. The account ID from my accounts to the account ID in my cases. And we're done. Next, we're going to take a look at how we can go ahead and use this information.